Thanks for choosing us. We go straight into our stories now. And cocoa farmers are calling for a 72.5% upward adjustment of the farm gate price of cocoa beans from 800 cedis to 1,380 cedis per bag for the next cocoa season. Ghana Cocoa Board announced that the 2023-2024 cocoa crop season will start from this week, Friday, September 8th, against the initial date of October 1. Ahead of the official announcement of the new farm gate price, the Ghana Civil Society Cocoa Platform has organized a press conference to table their concerns. Topmost of them is ensuring that there is an increase in the price which they have been selling since 2019. According to a member of the platform, Letitia Yankee, the proposed amount of 1,380 cedis per bag is less than the living income differential of $400.
As we always do, we have also looked at the numbers and based on our very modest and somewhat conservative estimates have arrived at a minimum of 55 to 65% increment in the farm gate price of cocoa for this season. We arrived at this modest expectation, taking note of the prevailing international market dynamics, which has led to over 35% increment in the ICCO World Cocoa Market Price, as well as the challenges posed by the unstable Ghanaian cedi, the high inflation, the high cost of labor, and most importantly, the need for farmers to be paid adequate and commensurate prices for their efforts. Based on the working assumption of the Producer Price Review Committee, PRRC, which aims at ensuring that farm gate price is pegged at a minimum of 70% of the net free on board FOB price of cocoa beans, GCPP is of the firm opinion that farmers in Ghana should be receiving a minimum of 22,080 Ghana cedis per ton, which is equivalent to 1,380 Ghana cedis per bag. That is 62.5 kilogram of cocoa beans. This figure was arrived at using the lowest projected values available, including the LID of $400 per ton as agreed.
Now, some stakeholders in the agri sector have taken prudent steps to increase food production in Ghana to help attain food security. According to Chief Executive of HJA Africa, producers of OFA fertilizer, Henry Abraham, the company is committed to producing an efficient and climate-friendly organic fertilizer for farmers to increase their yield. He spoke at the 3rd Annual Stakeholder Forum in Agric held in Accra.
The third annual OFA Stakeholder Forum focused on how OFA can help both big and small agribusiness farmers to increase profits as well as address climate change issues. The forum also aimed at determining challenges faced by players in the rice value chain. In an interview, Chief Executive of HJ Africa, Henry Abraham, said some synthetic fertilizers are accounting for the low production recorded by farmers, hence their resort to produce quality and organic fertilizer to support farmers.
Essentially, OFA does no harm to the climate. That may not sound that exciting on its own, but the truth is synthetic fertilizers are possibly the worst single product on the planet for the climate. Something like 3% of greenhouse gas emissions, global warming gases, come from synthetic fertilizers, partly because it takes a lot of energy to make them, partly because it takes a lot of energy to transport them. You see all those ships on the high seas carrying bags of fertilizer, and partly because once you use fertilizer in the soil, nitrogen-based fertilizer, NPKs and so on, some of it is not used by the plants but stays in the soil. Microbes convert it to nitrous oxides. Nitrous oxides are 300 times more dangerous for the climate than CO2. So those three things together mean that synthetic fertilizers are probably the worst single product on the planet for climate. So if you can reduce their use, which you can with offer, and save money at the same time. We're not asking people to spend more. We're saying save yourself money and save the planet at the same time.
Agro-Eco member of International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movement, Willem Albertus, added that the use of harmful and wrong fertilizers could have adverse effects on the environment and food production.
The trouble is that we use a lot of chemical inputs, and not only that it is bad for the planet as a whole to produce those chemical inputs, but it's coming into the environment. And when it comes in the environment, you have all other kind of terrible things happening. So if you don't use it, it's much better. Now what we see here with OFA, you can do that. OFA is nature-based, certified, and it gives an enormous good result. So that's why I'm saying if you shift to organic agriculture and you use the right inputs, organically made, then I think as a whole, not only for the profit but also for the planet, for the human, it is much better.
Farmers were implored to adopt the right fertilizers and practices to improve agricultural production.
Away from agriculture, total value of loans secured through the Collateral Registry reached almost 6 billion cedis at the end of June this year. George Biafe has more from the latest report released by the Bank of Ghana.
It showed that almost 6 billion Ghana cedis were disbursed from March to June this year and were based on items that were submitted to the Collateral Registry to cover this credit. This amount represents more than 15% jump over what was given in the same period for last year. Commercial banks accounted for almost 5 billion Ghana cedis of this credit, with special deposit-taking institutions accounting for the rest. The report also revealed that the total number of collateral registered went up by more than 15% to hit over 50,000 items. More than half of the searches on these items came from persons that wanted credit from savings and loans companies. The Collateral Registry is a body established by the Bank of Ghana under the Borrowers and Lenders Act to help borrowers register their movable and non-movable assets to help secure credit from financial institutions in the country.
Let's go on Zoom now and speak to finance lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwa, and get his thoughts on this report. Thank you so much, Prof, for your time. First, what do you make of the Collateral Registry report released by the Bank of Ghana ending second quarter of this year?
Thank you very much. What we see is that credit extension is increasing in the country, despite what appears to be the down and poor performance of the economy. Businesses are still, requesting for loan, which is an indication that the outlook for the future is bright. Hence, the need to request for more loans to produce and to take advantage of the anticipated positive turnaround in the economy in the future. So that is how the increase in loan portfolio portrays by way of forecast or outlook for the future. Again, the Collateral Registry is helping us to build a strong and an efficient credit culture and system that can support business activities by way of commercial engagement and then also retail individual lending needs. So what we need to do is to make sure that we support the Collateral Registry so that they can help give us that strong credit culture and system we need to build the economy. The modern day economy thrives on credit. At the country level, at the industry and the individual level, it is credit that drives the modern day economy.
Right, Doc, but are you surprised about the amount of money that has been disbursed with the backing of the registry ending second quarter of 2023?
It is not surprising. It is not surprising. You see, businesses still need money to run. And loans are the go-to place for businesses to run. The reason is that when it comes to sourcing for funding, you see, the equity side of our market, which is using stocks, has not been seen as a very preferred mode of business financing compared to loans. Again, the bond segment of our market also has not been seen as a preferred source of funding for businesses. So for most businessmen, the go-to place for loan facilities is either the banks or the SDIs. That is why we still hear that despite the fact that rates on loans are high, businessmen and women will still prefer to go to the banks and the SDIs than to use the stock market or the bond market as an avenue for mobilizing funding. It may take some time before we'll be able to have a change in that line of thinking, where it will be equity first, maybe bond markets, and then the loans. For now, our economy is bank-led. And so it's the banks and the SDIs that will continue to lead the charge when it comes to credit or funding facilities for businesses.
Another development that has come up is that more movable assets have come up as the top item being tendered for loans. What's your thoughts on that?
It is very interesting and it is very good in the sense that, you see, the movable assets is an indication that we are moving away from using land and buildings as the sole driver of collateral in support of loans. How many businessmen and women, despite their nice ideas, commitment to work, have buildings and lands available that they have ownership over or titles over that they can present as collaterals to support a lending proposition? Many of these businessmen and women do not have it. So if the trend is now moving towards movables like inventory and cash, which are good indicators of economic engagement, then it is a better way of measuring economic activity and giving out loans than to rely on buildings and land. I can have a land or a building, but it doesn't mean I'm engaged in any serious economic activity. But for me to have cash, but for me to have inventory, clearly shows that I am engaged in one form of economic activity or not. So if this becomes the drivers of loans by way of collateral to support loans, it is a good thing. And as a country, we should be happy to be seeing that what is driving loan acquisition or loan security is movable properties, the form of cash and inventory, and not buildings or lands, which even in our economy is very difficult for many entrepreneurs and businessmen to come by or to acquire.
What could be the impacts of this on loan recovery and NPLs?
Okay, for NPLs, we can see that when it comes to realizing value from this collateral, because they are mostly cash and immovable, the cost and resources needed to turn this collateral into cash is relatively easy and simpler with little encumbrances compared to a building or a land. And this makes it easy for banks to manage their loans. In the long run, we expect that the impact on NPL will be positive. It will reduce NPLs, and it will also make it easy for banks to manage their loan books, sort of going through the laborious process of using land and landed properties for something like this. We should also not forget that because you are making more use of inventory or movable assets, the female portion or percentage of our population that are engaged in economic activities, who by our cultural system are in many instances not mainly engaged in what I would call high-level economic activities, because they do not have land and buildings, now can use their cash and inventory as collateral to support their lending. So also, the females going forward will have a lot more in terms of access to credit, if the trend towards movable collateral is what we are going to see going forward. Because if the buildings and the lands are the main component of collateral, then most of our females will be cut off from that supply of credit. But thank God we are seeing a change in trend, which gives every gender the opportunity to have access to loan when it comes to cash and inventory.
Right, thank you so much, Senior Finance Lecturer at the University of Ghana Business School, Dr. Benjamin Amwade. Thank you so much for your time. You're still watching Business Live here on the Joy News channel, so please do make a date. And that's how we end Business Live tonight. For more news, you can log on to myjoyonline.com/business. I am Beverly Broom. I leave you with news making headlines on the international front.